The mountains were teeth, sharp, white, unforgiving teeth gnawing at the darkness. Wind howled through the passes like something dying, and snow fell thick enough to choke on. Christmas Eve in the Hindu Kush meant no carols, no lights strung on trees, no children waiting for morning. It meant frozen air that cut like glass and visibility measured in arm's length. Lieutenant Mason Reeves pressed his thermal scope against his eye, scanning the ridgeline ahead. Nothing but white static. The blizzard had rolled in 3 hours earlier, transforming their insertion zone into a frozen hell. Command, this is Phantom 7. Weather conditions critical. Request extraction delay. Mason's voice was steady despite the ice forming on his beard. Static crackled in his ear. Then a voice, distant and broken. Phantom 7. Negative on delay. Target mobile. Must intercept. 2300 hours. Say again. Command, you're breaking up. More static. Then silence. Behind Mason, 6 other SEALs huddled in the lee of a boulder. SEAL Team 7, handpicked for Operation Shepherd's Watch. Locate and neutralize a mobile missile platform operated by a splinter terrorist cell. Intelligence suggested the platform was moving through these mountains toward a populated valley. Christmas morning would bring fire from the sky if they failed. Sergeant Blake Hartman crawled up beside Mason. LT, this storm's not clearing. Helo extraction might be impossible. Mason nodded. At 34, he'd run enough operations to know when nature had the upper hand. We complete the mission. Worry about getting home after. Hartman was 31, a sniper with 73 confirmed kills and a wife named Sarah who made terrible cookies that he pretended to love. He tucked a tin of those cookies in his pack before this deployment, wrapped in aluminum foil, meant for the team on Christmas morning. Marcus says the equipment's picking up interference, Hartman said. Not just weather, active jamming. That changed things. Mason keyed his radio again. Command, Phantom 7. Detecting hostile electronic warfare. Advise. Nothing, not even static now. Petty Officer Marcus Webb handled their communications. He was 26, brilliant with technology, useless with women. He joined the Navy to escape a dying mining town in West Virginia. Now he was dying on a different kind of mountain. LT. They're jamming everything, Marcus said, his young face tight with worry. Satellite, radio, GPS. We're dark. The rest of the team gathered close. Chief Petty Officer Ryan Sullivan, 41, the oldest among them, with 3 daughters he'd promised to call on Christmas morning. Petty Officer Derek Chen, 28, explosives expert, amateur photographer, who documented every mission with a battered Nikon. Petty Officer Jake Morrison, 25, the kid, fresh from training, who still believed wars were won cleanly. And Hospital Corpsman Nathan Pierce, 32, who'd saved more lives than he'd taken, whose hands were steadier than his faith these days. We're 3 kilometers from the target zone, Mason said. Storm or no storm, jamming or no jamming, those missiles move at dawn. We move now. They moved. 7 shadows in the white, bent against wind that wanted them dead. The cold was personal here, aggressive. It found every gap in their gear, every exposed inch of skin. Nathan's medical pack rattled with frozen saline bags. Derek's camera stayed buried. No pictures worth dying for tonight. The target was a cave complex, according to satellite imagery from 48 hours ago. Mobile launchers could hide there, protected from aerial surveillance. The terrorist cell, a splinter group calling themselves the Iron Crescent, had been ghost for 3 months. Now, on Christmas Eve, they'd make themselves real with fire. Mason thought about his own daughter, Emma, 8 years old, waiting in Virginia. He'd called her 3 days ago. She'd asked if he'd be home for Christmas. He'd lied and said maybe. She'd said she'd leave cookies out just in case, and Santa would understand if Daddy had to work. The memory cut worse than the wind. 2 hours into the movement, Ryan raised his fist. The team dropped. He pointed ahead. Thermal signatures, faint but distinct. 8 contacts, moving in patrol formation. We're expected, Blake whispered. Mason's jaw tightened. The mission brief had mentioned possible security patrols, but this was organized, deliberate. They were hunting. The team spread into cover positions. The enemy patrol passed within 20 meters, close enough to hear their voices carried on the wind. They spoke in Pashto, casual conversation that Marcus couldn't fully translate, but recognized the tone of men who believed they owned this night. After the patrol disappeared into the snow, Derek moved up beside Mason. LT, something's wrong. They're not searching. They're blocking. Blocking what? The route to the target. Every position we'd approach from. Derek's eyes were sharp behind his goggles. They knew we were coming. The words settled like stones in Mason's gut. A leak. Someone had talked. The mission was compromised before they'd even loaded the helicopter. We proceed, Mason said. Different route. Through the high pass. That's a killing ground if they're set up right, Ryan said. So is every other option now. Mason checked his rifle. We don't stop. Those missiles launch. A lot of people don't see Christmas morning. They climbed. The high pass was a knife-edge ridge between two peaks, exposed to the full fury of the storm. Wind speeds hit 60 miles per hour. Snow drove horizontally. Jake slipped twice, caught himself both times, terror bright in his eyes. At the ridge crest, they saw it. Below, in a hollow carved by ancient glaciers, sat 3 mobile missile launchers. Vehicles were covered with thermal camouflage, nearly invisible, but the activity around them was clear. Crews working, preparing for launch. Guards posted, lights strung between positions. Christmas lights, stolen or scavenged, a mockery of the holiday they were about to destroy. Count 30 hostiles, Blake said, scanning through his scope, plus crew, 45 total. 7 against 45. In a blizzard. Cut off from support. We call for an airstrike, Nathan said. Let the birds handle it. With what radio? Marcus held up his dead equipment. We're completely dark. Mason made the call commanders hate making. We laser designate the targets. When the storm clears, drones will see it. Air Force will strike. And until then, Jake asked, we make sure they don't launch. Whatever it takes. They began the descent, slow, careful, using the storm as cover. The plan was simple because complicated was impossible now. Get close, mark targets with laser designators, prevent launch by any means necessary, survive until dawn. But simple plans die first in war. They were halfway down when the world exploded. The RPG came from nowhere, screaming through the snow like a banshee. It impacted 10 meters to Mason's left, erupting rock and ice. The concussion threw them sideways. Jake went down hard, tumbling. Contact left. Ryan's voice cut through the chaos. Muzzle flashes sparked in the white darkness. Rounds cracked past, supersonic, close enough to feel. The enemy had been waiting, positioned, ready. This wasn't an ambush. This was an execution. Move. Move. Mason dragged Jake to his feet. The kid's eyes were dazed, blood running from his nose. They scrambled for cover behind a rock outcropping. Rounds chewed the stone, spitting chips. Derek returned fire, controlled bursts, covering their movement. His rifle sang its sharp song. Another RPG. This one, closer. The explosion lifted Nathan off his feet, slammed him into a boulder. He crumpled. Corpman down. Blake was already moving, low crawling through fire. Mason keyed his radio by instinct, knowing it was useless. Command. Phantom 7 taking heavy fire. Request immediate support. Static answered. Dead air. The enemy had them triangulated. Fire came from 3 sides now. Precise. Organized. These weren't scattered insurgents. This was a trained force executing a planned ambush. They knew exactly where we'd be, Marcus shouted over the gunfire. Because someone told them, Mason thought. Someone on our side. Blake reached Nathan, checked him quickly. He's breathing, concussed, can't fight. The team was pinned. Ammunition wouldn't last long at this rate. The cold was already sapping their strength, and the enemy just kept coming, shadows in the snow, closing the noose. Then the sky lit up. A helicopter, their extraction bird, appeared through the storm. Hope surged through Mason's chest. The pilot had come back, weather be damned. They had a chance. The Stinger missile hit the helicopter's tail rotor. The aircraft spun, out of control, engine screaming. It disappeared behind the ridgeline. Seconds later, an orange fireball bloomed against the white night. No one spoke. Hope died with that fireball. Phantom 7, this is command. The radio crackled to life, broken but audible. Extraction bird down, no further assets available. Mission abort, exfiltrate through. Static, consume the rest. Say again. Command. Mason's voice was granite. We have wounded. Enemy force between us and any exfil route. Cannot support. Winter storm grounding all. Alone. Recommend. Evade. The transmission died. They were alone. Truly alone. 7 men, 1 wounded, against an enemy that knew their every move, in a blizzard on Christmas Eve, with no hope of rescue. What do we do, LT? Jake's voice cracked. He was holding his rifle too tight, finger outside the trigger guard because he was shaking too hard to trust himself. Mason looked at his team. Ryan, the chief, who'd been through worse and survived. Blake, who never missed. Marcus, who could make technology sing. Derek, who saw the world through a lens and understood angles. Nathan, barely conscious, blood freezing on his face. And Jake, the kid, who still had a chance at a life after this. We survive, Mason said. That's the mission now. We survive. They moved under cover of suppressing fire. Ryan and Blake laid down a wall of lead while the others dragged Nathan. They made it 50 meters before the enemy responded with machine gun fire. Heavy caliber, belt-fed, raking their position. Derek stumbled, grabbed his leg. Hit! How bad? Mason pulled him into cover. Through and through. Calf. I can move. Derek's face was pale, jaw clenched. 2 wounded now, ammunition running low, enemy pressing from all sides. They found a cluster of boulders, a temporary fortress. The team collapsed into defensive positions. Nathan was coming around, groaning. Derek wrapped his leg, hands shaking from more than cold. Count ammunition, Mason ordered. The numbers were bad. Each man had 2 magazines left. Marcus's rifle had jammed, frozen mechanism. Jake had dropped his pack in the initial explosion, lost half his gear. They're going to rush us, Ryan said. He'd seen this before, in Fallujah, in Helmand, pin us down, wait for us to run dry, then overrun. How long? Mason asked. 20 minutes, maybe 30. Blake was scanning through his scope, hunting targets. I can slow them, buy time. For what? Marcus asked. There's no cavalry coming. The words hung there, heavy as the snow. They all knew it was true. This mountain would be their grave. Christmas morning would find 7 frozen bodies, 7 families destroyed, 7 empty chairs at 7 tables. Mason thought about Emma again. Her last words to him, I love you, Daddy, come home safe. He'd failed, but he could still make sure the mission succeeded. Those missiles couldn't launch. New plan, Mason said. We get to those launchers, destroy them, that's what we came for. We'll never make it, Marcus said. Probably not, but maybe one of us will, and one is enough. Mason checked his rifle. We came here to stop those missiles. People die if we don't. Kids die. Emma's age, your sister's age, Ryan. Somebody's kids. Silence. Wind howled. Snow fell. And in that moment, each man made his choice. I didn't join the Navy to quit on Christmas Eve, Blake said. Sarah's going to kill me if I die, Ryan added. Might as well die doing something useful. Derek laughed. A painful sound. Hell of a last mission. They prepared to move. Nathan was coherent enough to hold a rifle. Derek could walk. Barely. Jake had stopped shaking, replaced fear with something harder, colder. Mason was about to give the order when Blake hissed. Hold. Enemy advancing. Through the snow, shapes materialized. A dozen fighters, moving in tactical formation, assault rifles ready. They were 30 meters away and closing. Wait for it, Mason whispered. 20 meters? 15? The SEALs opened fire as one. Controlled bursts, precise targeting, 7 rifles speaking death. Enemy fighters dropped, surprised, unprepared for such fierce resistance from a pinned force. But more kept coming. For every one that fell, 2 more appeared. The Iron Crescent had committed everything to killing them. Falling back, Mason pulled Jake with him. The kid had frozen, watching a man die, the reality of war crystallizing before his eyes. They retreated deeper into the boulder field, a maze of stone and ice. The enemy pursued, cautious now, having learned respect. But they were still coming, inevitable as dawn. The team reached a narrow defile between 2 massive rocks. Good defensive position, last defensive position. This is it, Ryan said. We hold here, or we die here. Mason nodded. He pulled out the tin of cookies Blake had been carrying, dented from the RPG blast. He opened it, passed it around, They each took one of Sarah's terrible cookies, ate them in silence. "Merry Christmas, you ugly bastards," Blake said. They laughed. It was either that or cry. The enemy came like a tide. The SEALs met them with fire and steel. The night became thunder and lightning. Muzzle flashes strobed the darkness. Brass casings clinked on stone, ringing like bells. Mason's rifle went dry. He reloaded his last magazine. 11 rounds left. He made each one count. Beside him, Jake was crying and shooting, tears freezing on his face, but his aim was true. The kid was learning what it meant to be a SEAL. Derek's rifle clicked empty. He drew his pistol, kept firing. "This is not how I die. Not here. Not tonight." But it was. They all knew it. The enemy had them. This was the end. Mason prepared to give the order to fix bayonets, make a final charge, when Blake said something strange. "LT. Check your 6. Mason turned, saw nothing but snow and darkness and the mountain rising behind them. "What am I looking at?" "Laser designation. Someone's painting targets, not us, someone else." Through the storm, barely visible, a red dot danced on the chest of an enemy fighter. Then, another dot. And another. "Who the hell?" Marcus started. The first shot came from impossibly far away. A single crack, muted by distance and storm. The fighter with the red dot on his chest dropped, a hole between his eyes. Then a second shot. Another kill. Clean, precise. The enemy fighters scattered, seeking cover, trying to locate the shooter. The SEALs stayed frozen, watching something impossible unfold. The sniper fire came from the high ridge, from a position that shouldn't have been possible to shoot from. Wind speeds at that elevation, in this storm, would make accurate fire impossible for any normal shooter. But whoever was up there wasn't normal. Shot after shot, each one finding its target. No wasted ammunition, no misses, just death delivered with surgical precision. The enemy fighters were being systematically eliminated by someone they couldn't see, couldn't locate, couldn't fight. "There," Blake whispered. His scope trained on the ridge. "I see muzzle flash, grid coordinates. No, that can't be right. That's over 800 meters in this wind." Another shot. Another body fell. Mason scanned the ridge with his thermal scope. Found nothing. Whoever was shooting had thermal discipline that bordered on supernatural, or they were shooting from inside something, protected from the cold. "There's a cave system up there," Derek said, studying the mountainside. "Old Soviet observation post from the 80s. Supposed to be abandoned." Another shot. The enemy was in full retreat now, dragging their wounded, abandoning their attack. The mysterious sniper had broken their assault in under a minute. Silence fell. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. "What do we do?" Jake asked. "We find out who just saved our lives," Mason said. They climbed. It took 20 minutes to reach the ridge, moving carefully, weapons ready. The cave entrance was a black mouth in the white mountain, ancient stone worn smooth by wind and time. Blake took point, rifle up. "Anyone in there? Identify yourself. We're U.S. military." No answer, just the wind moaning through the cave mouth. They entered. The cave went back 30 feet before opening into a larger chamber. And there, illuminated by a chemical light stick, they found her. She sat on a flat rock, field stripping an M110 sniper rifle with movements so practiced they were almost mechanical. White camouflage cloak covered her body, face wrapped in a scarf against the cold. Only her eyes were visible, pale blue, cold as the ice around them. Marcus raised his weapon. "Identify yourself." She didn't stop working on her rifle, didn't even look up, just continued her maintenance with the focused intensity of a professional. "I said identify." Blake grabbed Marcus's arm. "Lower your weapon, son." "Chief?" Blake was staring at the woman like he'd seen a ghost. That rifle, M110 with custom modifications, match-grade barrel, Schmidt and Bender scope with ballistic computer. Suppressor that shouldn't exist because it's from a program that was black when I had top-secret clearance. "So?" Marcus asked. "So there was only one person authorized to carry that weapon loadout." Blake's voice had dropped to barely a whisper. "Only one person who could shoot like that. But she's supposed to be dead." The woman looked up then. Her eyes met Blake's. Something passed between them, recognition maybe, or memory. "Kate?" Blake took a step forward. "Kate Sullivan?" The woman stood. She was smaller than expected, maybe 5'6", lean in the way distance runners are lean. She unwrapped the scarf from her face, revealing features that were striking in their severity. High cheekbones, sharp jaw, a face that belonged on ancient coins, and scars, burns running down the left side of her neck, disappearing beneath her gear. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No sound came out. She touched her throat, frustrated, then reached for a small waterproof notebook tucked in her vest. She wrote in quick, precise strokes, then held it up. Kate Sullivan, Chief Petty Officer, former SEAL sniper, MIA, presumed KIA, 5 years ago. You're the ghost, Ryan breathed. The stories were real. Mason had heard the stories. Every SEAL had. Kate Sullivan, the legend, the woman who'd completed sniper school with the highest scores in program history. 317 confirmed kills over 4 deployments. They called her the ghost because enemies never saw her, never heard her, just died. She'd been lost on a mission in these same mountains 5 years ago. Helicopter crashed, or shot down, reports varied. Search and rescue found the wreckage, but no bodies. She was declared killed in action, given a memorial service, buried with honors in an empty coffin. Except she wasn't dead. She was standing right here, very much alive. Kate wrote again, "Why are you here?" Operation Shepherd's Watch, Mason said. Targeting mobile missile launchers in the valley below. But we were compromised, ambushed, left for dead. Kate's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Recognition, maybe, sympathy. She wrote, "The mission that killed me was also compromised. Also in these mountains. Also on Christmas Eve. 5 years ago tonight. The coincidence was too precise to be coincidence." "Who knew about your mission?" Mason asked. Kate wrote a name. Mason felt his blood turn cold. The same officer who'd briefed them on Shepherd's Watch. Commander Garrett Pierce, current operations chief for JSOC Forward Operations. "He betrayed you?" Blake asked. Kate nodded. Wrote, "Sold mission details to the Iron Crescent. Helicopter was shot down because they knew exactly when and where we'd extract. I was the only survivor. Been here ever since." 5 years? Marcus couldn't hide his disbelief. "You've been living in this cave for 5 years?" Kate shook her head, gestured around the cave. It wasn't just a cave. It was a base. Supplies stacked against walls. Weapons cache in a corner. Maps covering every surface, marked with positions, patrol routes, timing. This wasn't survival. This was mission prep. She wrote, "I've been watching them, learning their patterns, waiting for the right moment." "Waiting for what?" Mason asked, though he thought he knew. Kate's smile was thin and hard. Revenge. Kate lit a propane heater, the kind hunters used. Warmth spread through the cave, painful as it brought feeling back to frozen extremities. She gestured for them to sit, then began laying out what she knew. The maps were incredibly detailed. 5 years of observation condensed into paper and ink. Patrol routes marked by month. Supply convoys tracked by season. Personnel rosters that Kate had assembled through patient watching. The Iron Crescent cell operating in this region numbered about 60 fighters total, rotating through camps, moving weapons, preparing for something big. Kate wrote rapidly, explaining in terse sentences. Pierce feeds them intelligence. Has for years. He's paid an opium, moved through military supply chains. He's how they've stayed ahead of every operation in this sector. "That's a serious accusation," Ryan said. "You have proof?" Kate pulled out a waterproof bag, extracted a tablet wrapped in protective layers. She powered it on, showed them encrypted communications she'd intercepted using equipment salvaged from her crashed helicopter. Messages between Pierce and Iron Crescent leadership, payment records, shipment manifests, everything needed to put Pierce away for life. "Why didn't you report this?" Mason demanded. 5 years, Kate. You could have walked out, brought this to command." Kate's hand trembled as she wrote. The answer came slowly. "Because I'm dead. Officially. No identity. No way to verify who I am. And Pierce would know I was coming. He'd destroy evidence. Disappear. I needed him to feel safe. Needed him to make a mistake big enough that even he couldn't cover it. Like setting up another SEAL team to be killed on Christmas Eve," Blake said quietly. Kate nodded. Nathan, who'd been silent while Derek treated his concussion, spoke up. You saved us to get to Pierce. Kate met his eyes. Wrote, I saved you because I was there once. Left for dead on this mountain while someone safe and warm sold my life for money. I know what that feels like. I know how it ends. She paused, then wrote again. But yes, you're my proof that Pierce is still operating. And my way back in. Mason studied the maps again, understanding dawning, the missile launchers. They're not just any target, they're the culmination of Pierce's operation. He gets them through, earns a massive payday, and retires rich while villages burn. That's why the timing was so specific, Marcus added. Why we had to intercept tonight. He needs those missiles to launch on Christmas morning for maximum psychological impact. Kate tapped the map where the launchers sat. Wrote, he's also here. Pierce came in yesterday to oversee the launch personally. He's in the command post bunker. The revelation hung in the air. Pierce, the man who'd betrayed them, who'd killed Kate's team, who'd sentenced them all to die, was less than a kilometer away. We take him, Mason said. It wasn't a question. Kate smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. She wrote, we destroy the launchers, capture Pierce alive, deliver him to command with evidence, clear your names, clear mine. In a blizzard, against 40+ hostiles, while we're cut off from support, with 2 wounded, Ryan ticked off the challenges. Hell of a Christmas present. I've spent 5 years preparing for this night, Kate wrote. I know every position, every weakness, every guard rotation. I know where they store ammunition, where their communications are, how to disable their jamming equipment so you can call for help. You can do all that? Jake asked. Kate looked at him, this young SEAL barely old enough to shave. Wrote, I'm the ghost. I can do things they think are impossible. She laid out the plan. It was ambitious, borderline insane, but it had a chance. Kate would disable the jamming equipment, restore their communications. Then she'd provide overwatch while the team infiltrated the launcher position. Derek, despite his leg wound, could rig the launchers to explode. They'd capture Pierce in the chaos, extract via the emergency beacon that Marcus could activate once communications were restored. What about you? Mason asked Kate. How do you extract? She didn't write anything, didn't need to. The answer was in her eyes. She wasn't planning to leave this mountain. This was her home now, her fortress, her grave. She would help them complete their mission, get her revenge, then disappear back into legend. Negative, Blake said firmly. You come with us. You're a SEAL, Kate. SEALs don't get left behind. Not again. Kate wrote, slower this time. I'm a ghost. I belong here. You're a Marine's worst nightmare is what you are, Ryan said. And you're coming home even if we have to carry you. For the first time since they'd met her, Kate's expression softened. Tears gathered in her eyes, though she didn't let them fall. She wrote, I can't speak anymore. Explosion damaged my vocal cords. I'm not the soldier you remember. Can you shoot? Mason asked. Kate nodded. Can you fight? Another nod. Then you're exactly the soldier we need. Mason extended his hand. Welcome back to the team, Chief Sullivan. Kate stared at his hand. 5 years alone on this mountain. 5 years of silence and cold and watching. 5 years of being dead while she was still alive. Then she took his hand, her grip, strong despite her size. She wrote one more thing. Merry Christmas, Lieutenant. They spent an hour reviewing the plan, memorizing details, coordinating timing. Kate distributed weapons from her cache, replacing their dwindling ammunition. She had equipment the SEALs had never seen, modifications and improvements she'd made during her exile. As they prepared to move out, Derek pulled Mason aside. LT, you know this is suicide. Probably. Emma's going to be really mad at you. Mason smiled. She'll understand. Eventually. This is what we do. Die on mountains? Save lives. Mason checked his rifle. Those missiles launch. Hundreds die, maybe thousands. Kids. Families. People who have no idea this mountain exists. We're the only ones who can stop it. And Kate? She's been alone up here for 5 years, watching, waiting. You really think she's stable enough for this? Mason looked at Kate, who was field stripping her rifle again, preparing it for the fight ahead. Stable? Probably not. But neither are we, and we're doing it anyway. Kate glanced up, caught them watching her. She made a gesture, 2 fingers to her eyes, then pointing outward. Sniper hand signal, I'm watching, got your back. Blake joined them. She's different than I remember. Harder, colder. 5 years alone would do that to anyone, Ryan said. The real question is, can we trust her? She saved our lives when she could have just let us die, Mason pointed out. She could have stayed hidden, let Pierce's plan succeed, remained a ghost forever. Instead, she revealed herself. That means something. Or, it means she's using us to get to Pierce, Nathan offered. The corpsman had recovered enough to be cynical again. Maybe, Mason admitted. But right now, she's the only chance we have. So we trust her until she gives us reason not to. They moved out at midnight. The storm had lessened slightly, visibility improving to maybe 40 meters. Kate led the way, moving through the mountain like she was part of it. She knew every rock, every drift, every place where the snow hid crevasses that could swallow a man whole. The team followed single file, trusting her completely because they had no choice. Derek limped but kept pace. Nathan's eyes were clear now, focused. Jake had transformed from scared kid to focused warrior. The switch flipped by survival instinct. Kate brought them to an overlook where they could see the entire enemy encampment. The missile launchers sat in the center, massive and threatening. Vehicles ringed them, guards posted every 20 meters. Lights were strung between posts, those stolen Christmas lights, twinkling mockingly. Kate pointed to a bunker on the east side, partially hidden by camouflage netting. She wrote on her notepad, Pierce. Inside, 2 guards. Then she pointed to a communications truck on the west side, jamming equipment. I'll take it out first. Mason nodded. Signal when we're clear to move. Kate slung her rifle across her back, drew a knife from her boot. It was a wicked thing, serrated on one side, sharp enough to split atoms on the other. She disappeared into the snow without a sound, becoming the ghost she was named for. Think she'll come back? Marcus whispered. She will, Blake said with certainty. She's a SEAL. She'll complete the mission. They waited. 5 minutes, 10, 15. Then, from across the valley, a brief flash of light from Kate's position. Signal, ready. Mason keyed his radio. Command, Phantom 7, radio check. Static. Then, Phantom 7, command, you're alive? Jesus, we thought. Save it, command. We have enemy missile launchers about to fire. Need immediate air support, coordinates to follow. 7. Be advised, weather is still prohibiting. I don't care if you have to fly through hell itself. Get us air support. People are going to die if those missiles launch. A pause. Then, roger that. 7. Air assets launching now. ETA 40 minutes. 40 minutes. They had to hold for 40 minutes. And capture Pierce, and not die. No problem, Blake muttered. Piece of cake. Kate appeared beside them like a ghost, making them all jump. She nodded toward the launchers, tapped her watch. Time to move. Let's go ruin Christmas for some bad guys, Ryan said. They descended into hell. The first guard died without knowing Kate existed. One moment he was standing watch, the next he was on the ground with a knife through his throat. Kate's hand over his mouth to muffle any sound. She lowered him gently, took his radio, his rifle, disappeared again. The SEALs moved in her wake, 7 shadows in the snow, closing on the launchers. Derek split off toward the vehicles, Marcus providing cover. Their job, plant charges, disable the missiles, make sure nothing fired even if the mission went sideways. Mason, Blake, Ryan, Nathan, and Jake headed for Pierce's bunker. Kate had given them the guard rotation. They had a 6-minute window when the guards changed shift, a gap in coverage they could exploit. 4 minutes into the window, they reached the bunker door. It was reinforced steel, locked from inside. Jake pulled out, breaching charges, started setting them. Timer, Mason whispered. 30 seconds when we blow the charges on the launchers. Coordinated strike. Mason nodded, looked at his watch. 2 minutes until Derek and Marcus were in position. Then Kate's voice crackled over the radio they'd taken from the guard. Impossible, because Kate couldn't speak. But there it was. Contact south. Patrol returning early. Except it wasn't Kate's voice. It was the radio. Kate using the enemy's own communications. She'd killed another guard, was impersonating them. Copy, someone replied in Pashto. What's your position? Kate responded in the same language. Flawlessly. Mason didn't speak Pashto, but he understood the tone. She was redirecting the patrol away from their position. She speaks Pashto? Jake whispered. 5 years on this mountain, Blake replied. Probably speaks every language in the region by now. Marcus's voice came through their secure channel. Charges set, ready to blow. On my mark, Mason said. He watched the seconds tick down. 3, 2, 1, mark. The launchers exploded simultaneously. Massive fireballs erupted into the night, turning snow to steam. The concussions rolled across the valley like thunder. Alarms shrieked. Men shouted. Chaos bloomed. Jake triggered his charges. The bunker door blew inward. The team poured through, weapons up, clearing corners with practiced efficiency. The bunker was luxurious by combat standards. Heaters running, lights powered by generator, communications equipment lining one wall. And there, sitting at a desk covered in maps and encrypted tablets, was Commander Garrett Pierce. He looked up as 7 rifles pointed at his face. Surprisingly, he smiled. Phantom 7, you're alive. How unfortunate. Mason almost shot him then. Finger on trigger, 1 pound of pressure from ending it. But they needed him alive. Needed him to answer for what he'd done. Hands where I can see them, Mason ordered. Pierce raised his hands slowly. You're making a mistake, Lieutenant Reeves. You have no idea what you've stumbled into. We know enough. You sold us out. Sold Kate Sullivan out 5 years ago. How many others? Pierce's smile widened. Kate Sullivan is dead. I watched her helicopter burn. I saw the bodies. No, a new voice said. You saw what you wanted to see. Kate stepped into the bunker, rifle trained on Pierce's head. She'd removed her face covering, letting him see her scars, her eyes, her very alive presence. Pierce's smile vanished. For the first time, he looked afraid. Impossible. Kate moved closer, never lowering her rifle. She pulled out her notepad, wrote something, held it up for Pierce to see. I've been waiting 5 years for this moment. Watching you, learning your operation, building my case. You're done. You can't prove anything, Pierce said, but his voice had lost its confidence. You're a ghost, legally dead. Your testimony means nothing. Kate wrote again. I don't need testimony. I have your encrypted communications, your payment records, your shipping manifests, everything you thought was secure. I've been recording for 5 years. The NSA will have a field day. She pulled out the tablet, tossed it to Mason. Complete evidence package, everything you need. Pierce lunged for a hidden pistol. Kate's shot took him in the shoulder, spinning him back. He collapsed, clutching the wound, blood spreading. Nicely done, Blake said. Outside, the enemy was regrouping. The launcher explosions had destroyed the missiles, but 40 angry fighters were still alive, and now very motivated to kill the people responsible. We need to move, Ryan said. That air support better be close. Marcus's voice crackled through. LT, we've got a problem. Enemy has anti-aircraft missiles we didn't account for. They're setting up to shoot down any rescue birds. Location? Mason asked. North Ridge. 3 launchers. Kate, you got eyes? From her position, Kate could see the ridge. She pulled out her tablet, typed coordinates, sent them to Mason. Then she headed for the door. Mason grabbed her arm. Where are you going? She showed him her notepad. Those launchers need to go away. I'm the only one in position to make it happen. That's 300 meters of open ground under enemy fire. Kate smiled that cold smile again. Wrote, I'm the ghost. I don't exist. They can't hit what they can't see. She was gone before Mason could stop her, disappearing into the storm like smoke. Kate moved through the killing ground like death itself. Bullets cracked around her, but she'd studied these fighters for 5 years. She knew how they aimed, where they expected targets to be. She was always somewhere else. The first launcher position was defended by 3 fighters. She shot the first one from 200 meters, through the storm, a perfect headshot that dropped him instantly. The second fighter turned, searching for her. Found nothing. She'd moved. Second shot from a different angle. Another kill. The third fighter panicked, spraying bullets randomly. Kate waited for him to reload, then ended him with a round through the chest. She reached the launcher, placed a thermite grenade, moved to the next position. 2 minutes had elapsed. The second launcher was more difficult. 5 fighters, alert now, scanning for threats. Kate couldn't approach directly. Instead, she circled, using terrain, using snow, becoming invisible. She picked them off one by one, patient, precise, each shot carefully aimed, accounting for wind, distance, the movement of her targets. They never saw her. They died, confused, terrified, believing in ghosts. The last fighter at the second position tried to run. Kate let him go 3 steps, then put a round through his leg. She needed information. She approached while he writhed in the snow, screaming. She pulled off her mask, let him see her face. His eyes went wide. He knew the stories, knew the legend. The ghost sniper, the demon of the mountains, the woman who couldn't be killed. She wrote on her notepad, "Where is your commander?" He told her, pointed toward a camouflaged position on the south ridge. Kate smiled, nodded, thanks, then knocked him unconscious with her rifle butt. She didn't kill unnecessarily, only when the mission required it. The third launcher was different. It was guarded by 10 fighters, and they'd figured out someone was systematically destroying their defenses. They were ready, watching, waiting. Kate couldn't approach. Too many eyes, too many angles of fire. She needed a different solution. She keyed the radio. "Marcus, can you hear me?" Silence. Then, "Kate, that you? How are you?" "No time. I need you to create a diversion. South side of the perimeter. Loud, bright, draw attention. That'll expose Derek's position. He's still planting charges." "I know. But if I don't take out that launcher, your air support gets shot down. Your choice." Mason's voice cut in. "Do it, Marcus. We'll cover Derek." 10 seconds later, a grenade exploded on the south perimeter. Then another. Marcus had found their ammunition dump. The explosions were spectacular, drawing every eye toward the fireball. Kate ran, full sprint across open ground, rifle slung, knife drawn. She reached the launcher while they were still watching the explosions, 3 fighters with their backs to her. She killed them in 6 seconds. 1, 2, 3, knife work, silent and brutal. The other 7 fighters turned, finally realizing the threat. Kate was already moving, using the launcher as cover, buying herself seconds to set the charge. They fired. Rounds punched through metal around her. She kept working, fingers steady despite the chaos. Timer set. 15 seconds. She ran. The explosion caught her at the edge of the blast radius, lifted her off her feet, threw her 10 meters. She hit hard, felt ribs crack, tasted blood, but she was alive, and the launcher was scrap metal. She rolled to her feet, ignored the pain, kept moving. The enemy was converging on her position. She was cut off from the SEALs, surrounded, and her rifle had been damaged in the blast. Time to improvise. She found a snowdrift, buried herself, controlled her breathing, made herself invisible. Fighters ran past, searching, shouting. She waited until they were gone, then emerged, a ghost from snow. The enemy commander's position was 50 meters away. Kate had 1 magazine left in her pistol, 15 rounds, more than enough. She approached from the blind side, using a route she'd scouted months ago. The commander was in a fortified position with 2 guards, monitoring the battle on multiple screens. He was older, gray in his beard, wearing expensive gear that didn't match his fighter's equipment. This was the man Pierce had been paying. This was the architect of tonight's attack. Kate dropped the first guard with a double tap to the chest. The second guard turned. Kate shot him through the throat. The commander reached for his rifle. Kate was faster. Pistol pressed against his temple. "Don't," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper, damaged but functional. First words she'd spoken aloud in 5 years. The commander froze, stared at her. The ghost. "I thought you were just a story." "Stories are dangerous," Kate whispered. "They make people careless." She zip-tied him, took his communications gear, his tablet, everything that might contain intelligence. Then she keyed the radio. "Mason, I have the enemy commander, and I found something you need to see." "Kate, where are you? We're pinned down, can't reach your position." Kate checked the tablet she'd taken from the commander, saw troop movements, attack plans, but also something else, payment records, communications with someone in Washington, someone high up. "Pierce isn't the only traitor," Kate said, her voice growing stronger with each word. "This goes higher, much higher. I'm sending you files now." She uploaded everything to Marcus's system, a complete intelligence dump, years of communications, payments, operations. A conspiracy that spanned multiple levels of command. "Kate, we need you back here," Mason said. "Air support is 5 minutes out, but we're taking heavy fire." Kate looked at the battlefield. The SEALs were surrounded, fighting from the bunker. Enemy fighters were closing in. She was too far away to help directly. But she was a sniper. Distance was her weapon. She climbed to the highest point she could reach, a rock outcropping that gave her clear line of sight to the bunker. Wind was brutal up here, snow driving horizontally. She set up her damaged rifle, used the commander's expensive scope as a replacement. "I have overwatch," Kate radioed. "Move on my signal." She began to shoot. Each target carefully selected. The fighter about to throw a grenade, the machine gunner setting up his weapon, the officer coordinating the attack. One shot, one kill. Methodical, patient, ghost. The enemy started to break. They'd come expecting to kill 7 men. Instead, they'd lost their launchers, their commander, and were being hunted by a legend they thought was myth. Fear rippled through their ranks. "They're running," Blake reported. "LT, they're actually running." The sound of helicopter rotors cut through the storm. 2 Apache gunships appeared, followed by a transport bird. The cavalry had arrived. Kate kept shooting until the transport landed. Watched the SEALs load Pierce aboard, followed by the captured enemy commander. Derek was carried on a stretcher. Nathan beside him, Marcus, Jake, Ryan, Blake, all alive, all going home. Mason stood at the helicopter door, scanning the ridgeline, looking for her. She could see him through her scope, could read his lips. "Come on, Kate, come home." She wanted to. 5 years of cold and silence and solitude. 5 years of being dead while alive. The chance to return, to be Chief Petty Officer Kate Sullivan again instead of the ghost. But that person was gone. The woman who could return to normal life had died in that helicopter crash 5 years ago. What remained was something else, something forged in ice and vengeance. She lowered her rifle, keyed the radio one last time. "Tell them the ghost is dead," she said. "Tell them I finished my mission. Tell them." "Kate, please." Mason's voice was desperate. "We don't leave people behind. You're coming with us." She smiled, even though he couldn't see it. "I'm already gone, Mason. I died 5 years ago. You just brought me closure." "That's bullshit and you know it. You're alive. You're a SEAL. You belong with your team." "My team is dead. I belong here. This is my mountain now." She could see him shaking his head, arguing with someone, probably the pilot. The Apaches were circling, providing cover. But they couldn't stay long. The storm was worsening again, visibility dropping. "1 minute, Mason said. "That's all we've got. Please, Kate, 1 more minute. Let us bring you home." Kate looked at the helicopter, at the men who'd fought beside her, at the life she could reclaim if she just walked down this mountain. Then she looked at her cave, her fortress, her grave. This mountain had been her hell and her salvation. Here, she'd mourned her team, planned her revenge, survived when survival seemed impossible. This place had become part of her, and she'd become part of it. 30 seconds. The pilot's voice crackled. Kate made her decision. She stood, slinging her rifle, and began walking toward the helicopter. Each step was agony, broken ribs grinding, leg wounded from an enemy round she'd been ignoring. But she kept moving. Mason saw her coming, started running toward her, meeting her halfway. He grabbed her arm, supporting her weight. "Knew you'd come," he said. "Don't make me regret it," Kate replied, her whisper voice almost lost in the wind. They reached the helicopter. Blake pulled her aboard. The bird lifted off immediately, banking hard, racing away from the mountain as enemy fire stitched the air behind them. Kate looked down at her cave, her home for 5 years, disappearing into the snow. Felt something break inside her chest, not ribs, but something deeper. The ghost was dying, finally, truly. And Chief Petty Officer Kate Sullivan was being reborn. "You okay?" Nathan asked, checking her wounds. Kate nodded, then shook her head, then nodded again. She didn't know. After 5 years of solitude, she didn't know how to be around people anymore. Blake sat beside her, didn't say anything, just sat. Presence without pressure. The way he'd always known her, even before the crash, even before the silence. "Thank you," Kate whispered, "for not forgetting me." SEALs never forget. Blake replied. That's the deal. That's what makes us family. Family. Kate had almost forgotten what that word meant. The helicopter flew through the storm, racing towards safety. Behind them, Christmas morning was breaking over the Hindu Kush, pale light touching peaks that had seen so much death, and somehow, improbably, were now seeing redemption. The debriefing took 3 days. Kate sat in a secured room at Bagram Air Base while a parade of officers, investigators, and intelligence analysts picked apart her story. 5 years of observations, recordings, and evidence meticulously documented. The conspiracy she'd uncovered reached further than anyone had imagined. Commander Pierce was arrested, along with 4 other senior officers who'd been part of his operation. The intelligence Kate had gathered led to seizures of drug shipments, weapons caches, and the dismantling of 3 terrorist cells operating in the region. It was the biggest intelligence coup in years. But Kate felt nothing, no satisfaction, no relief, just emptiness. She sat in the medical ward on Christmas morning, ribs taped, wounds treated, prescribed rest and therapy. Through the window, she could see soldiers opening care packages from home, sharing cookies and candy, trying to create some semblance of holiday cheer in a war zone. Blake found her there, holding 2 cups of terrible coffee. Thought you might want company. Kate gestured to the chair beside her bed. He sat, handed her the coffee. They drank in silence, the comfortable kind that exists between people who face death together. They want to give you a medal, Blake said eventually. The intelligence you gathered lives you saved. There's talk of a Navy Cross. Kate shook her head. Don't want it. Figured. But you should know what you did matters. Those missiles would have killed hundreds, maybe thousands. You stopped that. We stopped that, Kate corrected, her voice still barely above a whisper. Fair enough. Blake studied his coffee. So what now? You've been dead for 5 years. Takes a lot of paperwork to bring someone back to life. Kate hadn't thought about that. She'd been so focused on revenge, on completing her mission, that she hadn't considered what came after. She was legally dead. Her apartment was gone. Her belongings distributed or stored. Her bank accounts closed. 5 years of life erased. I don't know, she admitted. I'm not the same person anymore. That Kate died in the crash. I don't know who this one is. You're a survivor, Blake said. That's who you are. Someone who endured 5 years of hell and came out the other side stronger. Stronger? Kate laughed bitterly. I can barely talk. I have nightmares. I flinch when people get too close. I'm broken, Blake. So are most of us. That's what therapy's for. Blake set down his coffee. But you don't have to figure it all out today. One step at a time. Starting with what do you want for breakfast that isn't military rations. Kate smiled despite herself. Pancakes, real ones. With butter and syrup. I'll see what I can do. Over the next weeks, Kate began the long process of reintegration. Medical evaluations, psychological assessments, physical therapy. Learning to be around people again after 5 years of solitude. It was harder than surviving in the mountains had been. She had panic attacks in crowded spaces, couldn't sleep without a weapon nearby, jumped at loud noises. The therapist said it was normal, expected, treatable. Kate wasn't sure she believed that, but slowly, incrementally, she improved. Started having conversations that lasted more than 2 minutes, managed to eat in the mess hall without needing to sit with her back to the wall, even laughed at one of Marcus's terrible jokes. Mason visited regularly, brought her reports on the investigation. Pierce had flipped, given testimony against everyone involved in exchange for a lighter sentence. The corruption went all the way to the Pentagon. Heads were rolling. You did that, Mason said during one visit. 5 years of patience paid off. It won't bring back my team, Kate replied. Won't give me back the years I lost. No, but it means they didn't die for nothing. Their mission, your mission, it mattered. It still matters. Kate knew he was right, but it didn't make the loss hurt less. Emma, Mason's daughter, sent Kate a drawing. It showed stick figures of soldiers with a woman in white standing on a mountain, protecting them. Thank you for saving my daddy, the caption read in crayon. Kate taped it to the wall beside her bed, looked at it every morning when she woke from nightmares, reminded herself why she'd come down from that mountain. In February, Kate was medically cleared to return to duty, though with restrictions. No combat deployments until further evaluation. Limited physical training until her ribs fully healed. Regular therapy sessions mandatory. What will you do? Nathan asked during her discharge physical. Retire? Training command? Desk job? Kate had thought about it constantly. She couldn't go back to being a sniper, not with her damaged voice making communication difficult. Combat roles were out until the therapists cleared her, which might never happen. But the Navy was still willing to have her, in whatever capacity she could manage. Don't know yet, Kate admitted, but I'm alive. That's something. That's everything, Nathan corrected. The team threw her a welcome back party before deploying on their next mission. Nothing fancy, just burgers and beer in the team room, music playing, normal life. Jake taught her a complicated handshake he'd learned from his older brother. Derek showed her his photographs from the mission, the few he'd managed to take. Ryan told embarrassing stories about his daughters. Marcus tried to explain cryptocurrency. It was overwhelming and wonderful and terrifying all at once. This was what she'd been fighting for, she realized. Not revenge, not even justice, but this, right here, connection, community, family. Speech, Blake called out, and the others took up the chant. Kate shook her head, gestured to her throat. Speaking was still difficult, painful sometimes. Then write one, Mason suggested, handing her a notepad. Kate wrote for a minute, then held it up. 5 years ago, I thought I'd lost everything. My team, my voice, my life. But I learned something important on that mountain. We're never really alone, even when we think we are. The mission continues. The fight goes on. And as long as we remember those who fell, honor what they stood for, we carry them with us. You saved my life up there. Now I get to live it. Thank you for not leaving me behind. Semper Fidelis. Semper Fidelis. Always faithful. The Marine motto, borrowed because it fit better than the Navy's. These men had remained faithful to a ghost, had risked everything to bring her home. The least she could do was live the life they'd fought for her to have. Semper Fi, Blake echoed, raising his beer. The others joined in. Semper Fi. They drank to fallen comrades, to missions completed, to the uncertain future. Kate sat among them, part of something again, and felt the ghost, finally, truly die. Christmas Eve came again, the way it always does. Kate stood at Arlington National Cemetery, looking at the headstones of her old team. They'd finally gotten markers, proper recognition after the investigation revealed how they died. Snow fell gently, coating the white stones. Kate wore her dress uniform, medals she'd finally accepted pinned to her chest. She wasn't alone this time. Blake stood beside her, along with Mason and the rest of Phantom 7. "You okay?" Blake asked quietly. Kate nodded. She'd been working with a speech therapist, could speak almost normally now, though her voice would always be raspy, marked by what she'd survived. "I'm okay," she said. Better than okay. She was teaching now, at sniper school, passing on everything she'd learned on that mountain. Future generations of SEALs would benefit from her hard-won expertise. It wasn't combat, wasn't the life she'd imagined, but it was meaningful. It was enough. They stood in silence as snow fell, honoring the dead, grateful for the living. Emma ran up, bundled in a pink coat, dragging Mason by the hand. Miss Kate, look what I made." She held up a Christmas ornament, a painted wooden soldier. "It's you, on the mountain." Kate knelt down, taking the ornament carefully. "It's beautiful. Thank you, Emma. Daddy says you're a hero. Are you?" Kate looked at Mason, at Blake, at the graves of her fallen team. "No, sweetheart. I'm just someone who did her job. The real heroes are the ones who don't come home." Emma hugged her anyway, fierce and warm. Kate hugged back, something she'd had to relearn how to do, how to accept comfort instead of just providing it. They walked back to the cars together, family by choice, if not by blood. Kate looked back once at the cemetery, at the mountains visible in the distance. She'd left part of herself up there, in that cave, in that snow. But she'd brought something back too: purpose, connection, hope. The ghost was dead. Chief Petty Officer Kate Sullivan was alive. And that was the best Christmas gift anyone could ask for.